Asterisk, she was just a student in row 8 seat 8AA, pressed against the narrow window where the sky looked like an endless sheet of dull gray metal. The glass was cold against her temple as she leaned her head sideways, eyes half focused on the slow drift of clouds. Her backpack was crammed beneath the seat in front of her, heavy with textbooks, loose notes, and the laptop she hadn't opened since boarding. Scribbled equations, half-finished assignments, and problem sets filled her thoughts. More than the flight itself. This trip was supposed to be simple, a routine flight, a pause between semesters. Nothing more. Asterisk, the cabin hummed with the steady rhythm of the engines, a sound most people found comforting. It blended with the quiet murmur of conversation, the occasional laugh, the soft rustle of pages turning. She had her headphones in, music playing low, not loud enough to drown things out, just enough to give her an excuse not to engage. She liked to stay aware of her surroundings. Old habits didn't die easily. Asterisk, she wasn't asleep. She never truly slept on planes. The first jolt came without warning. It was mild, barely enough to shake the cabin, but it made the overhead bins rattle and drew a few nervous glances from passengers. Someone chuckled. Someone else sighed. The seatbelt sign flicked on with a soft chime. Turbulence. Normal. Expected. Asterisk, she barely reacted. The second jolt was sharper. The aircraft dipped suddenly, hard enough that her stomach lifted and her fingers tightened around the armrest. A few gasps rippled through the cabin. A child whimpered somewhere behind her. The wing outside her window flexed in a way that caught her attention immediately, not dangerously, but noticeably. Her eyes narrowed. She listened. Asterisk, the engine pitch shifted, just slightly, not enough for panic but enough to register. There was a delay between movement and correction that felt wrong, subtle, easy to miss, but not to her. Her heartbeat picked up not from fear, but from recognition. This isn't normal. Asterisk, the plane shuddered again, longer this time. The flight attendants paused mid-aisle, exchanging quick looks before resuming their calm routines. The practiced smiles were still there, but tighter now. She pulled one headphone off her ear. That was when the intercom crackled. Asterisk, feedback whined. Briefly before a voice cut through the cabin. Male. Controlled. Professional. Too carefully measured. Asterisk. Ladies and gentlemen. The captain said, "This is your captain speaking." The cabin quieted almost instantly. "We are experiencing an unexpected situation," he continued. There was a pause, just a fraction too long. "Please remain calm. Our crew is working to resolve the issue." Another pause. "If there is any combat pilot on board, active or former, please identify yourself to a flight attendant immediately." For a moment, the words didn't register. Then they did. Her breath caught. Around her, confusion spread like ripples in water. Heads turned, brows furrowed. Someone laughed nervously, muttering that it must be some kind of joke. Another passenger whispered, "Did he really say combat pilot?" Fear crept into voices, quiet but unmistakable. Her hands had gone cold. She stared straight ahead, heart pounding now, not from turbulence but from the weight of what she just heard. Combat pilot, not commercial, not flight instructor, combat. Her past called out over an intercom. She hadn't worn a uniform in years, hadn't stepped into a cockpit like that since she walked away, choosing classrooms and exams and anonymity over missions and medals. She had promised herself she was done, that she could be someone else now. A student, ordinary, invisible. Asterisk outside. The clouds darkened, thick and heavy, swallowing the light. The plane jolted again, harder than before, tilting just enough to trigger screams this time. Her seatbelt dug into her waist as the aircraft corrected unevenly. Asterisk, a flight attendant steadied herself against a seatback. then began moving down the aisle. "Everyone please remain seated," she said, voice tight but steady. The captain didn't repeat his request. He didn't need to. Her mind flooded with memories she kept locked away. Simulators shaking violently while alarms screamed, instructors watching silently to see if she would break, the crushing responsibility of knowing a single mistake could cost lives. She remembered her first real mission, hands trembling until training took over, until fear disappeared and only focus remained. She swallowed hard. "I'm not that person anymore." Another violent drop ripped through the aircraft. Oxygen masks rattled above, threatening to fall. Someone prayed out loud. Someone cried. Her instinct screamed louder than doubt. "If there's no one else, if I stay silent." Slowly, deliberately, she raised her hand. Row 8 was no longer just row 8. And she was no longer just a student. The flight attendant stopped mid-step when she saw the raised hand in row 8. For half a second, the practiced calm on her face slipped, replaced by raw disbelief. Her eyes traveled over the young woman's civilian clothes, backpack at her feet, hair tied back without ceremony. She didn't look like anyone who belonged in the sentence combat pilot. "Yes, miss?" The attendant asked carefully, as if afraid of what the answer might be. "I'm a former combat pilot," she said. Her voice was quiet, level, and completely steady. No bravado, no explanation. Just truth. The silence that followed felt heavier. Then the turbulence. Nearby passengers leaned away slightly, staring at her with open confusion. A man across the aisle scoffed under his breath, shaking his head. "She's barely out of college," he muttered to no one in particular. A woman clutched her armrest tighter, eyes flicking between the raised hand and the shaking cabin as if trying to decide whether to believe. The flight attendant didn't argue. She simply nodded once, decisively, and gestured toward the front. "Please come with me." As the student know, the pilot unbuckled her seatbelt. The aircraft lurched again, forcing her to brace herself against the seat in front. Screams rippled through the cabin. Overhead bins rattled violently. Somewhere behind her, something crashed to the floor. She stepped into the aisle. The walk forward felt unreal, like stepping out of one life and into another. Every eye followed her. Some were wide with hope, others sharp with doubt. She kept her gaze ahead, shoulders back, posture straightening automatically. Years of training reasserted themselves without permission. She didn't have to think about it. Another jolt hit. The plane dropped sharply before correcting, throwing several passengers against their seatbelts. She adjusted her footing instinctively, moving with the motion instead of fighting it. Old muscle memory. Old instincts. The closer she got to the cockpit, the clearer the situation became. She could hear it now, the uneven engine tone, the subtle but unmistakable struggle in the aircraft's response. This wasn't just bad weather. Something was wrong. The cockpit door opened. The captain turned first. Relief flashed across his face, quickly followed by surprise. His eyes flicked from her face to her hands, then back again, as if searching for something that would make this make sense. "You're the pilot?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she replied. The co-pilot stared openly, knuckles white around the controls. Sweat dotted his brow despite the cool cockpit air. Warning lights blinked in erratic patterns, casting red and amber reflections across the panels. The captain hesitated. She recognized the look-risk assessment compressed into seconds. Trust versus doubt. Protocol versus desperation. Former Air Force, she added, anticipating the question. Fast jets. Emergency recovery certified. Multiple system failure. Training. Asterisk, the co-pilot let out a shaky breath. We've lost consistent control response, he said quickly. Autopilot's unreliable. Hydraulics are lagging. Weather's closing in. Asterisk, she stepped closer, eyes scanning the instruments without touching anything yet. Her mind mapped the situation instantly. Inputs, outputs, delays. The aircraft wasn't broken beyond saving. It was wounded. And fighting. Asterisk, the captain studied. Her eyes again. Whatever he saw there tipped the balance. Asterisk, take the seat, he said, sliding back. She didn't hesitate. The moment she buckled in, something inside her clicked into place. The cockpit felt familiar in a way nothing else in her new life ever had. The controls fit her hands like they were molded for them. Her breathing slowed. The noise of the cabin faded into background static. Asterisk, she assessed rapidly. Hydraulics are responding late. We're overcorrecting. Asterisk, I know, the captain said tightly. It's like flying through mud. Asterisk, then stop fighting it, she replied. Work with the delay. Asterisk, she placed her hands on the controls, not forceful, not timid. Deliberate. The aircraft resisted her first correction, then responded sluggishly. She adjusted instantly. The warning alarm shrieked again. She silenced it. I'm aware. She murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Asterisk, the co-pilot watched her closely now. Disbelief slowly giving way to something else. Hope. Asterisk, another violent gust slammed the plane sideways. She compensated smoothly, jaw tightening, muscles burning as she held alignment. Asterisk, listen to me, she said calmly, eyes never leaving the instruments. She's unstable, but she's flyable. We just need to stay ahead of her. Asterisk, the captain nodded slowly. What do you need? Asterisk, clear communication, she said, and trust. Asterisk, outside, lightning flashed through the clouds, illuminating the storm like a battlefield. Asterisk, inside the cockpit, the weight of every soul on board settled onto her shoulders. She didn't push it away. She carried it. The aircraft bucked hard as another wall of turbulent air slammed into it, rattling the cockpit like a shaken cage. Rain hammered the windshield in thick, blinding sheets, each drop streaking sideways under the force of the wind. The sky outside had turned an angry charcoal gray, split occasionally by jagged flashes of lightning that illuminated the clouds for fractions of a second, before plunging everything back into darkness. She didn't flinch. Her hands were steady on the controls, fingers light but certain, as if she were holding something fragile instead of commanding thousands of tons of metal through a storm. Every movement was measured, no wasted motion, no panic. Wind shear increasing, the co-pilot said, his voice tight. I feel it, she replied. Her eyes moved constantly, altitude, airspeed, vertical speed, attitude processing faster. Then conscious thought. Don't chase the numbers. Let them settle. Asterisk, the plane lurched again, dropping suddenly before clawing back altitude. In the cabin, passengers screamed. She heard it faintly through the cockpit door, a distant echo. A fear that tightened her chest for just a moment before she locked it away. There would be time for that later. Right now, there was only the aircraft. Asterisk, the alarms began again, overlapping warnings, each demanding attention. She silenced the non-essential ones, prioritizing what mattered. Her breathing was slow and controlled. A rhythm drilled into her long ago. Asterisk, this reminds me of Simulator Run 7, she muttered under her breath. Asterisk, the captain glanced at her. That the one everyone hated? Asterisk, she nodded once. The one that taught you not to fight the plane. Asterisk, outside, the storm tossed them sideways, forcing her to counter gently, resisting the instinct to correct too aggressively. The hydraulics lagged, just as she'd suspected. Overcorrecting would only make things worse. Asterisk, okay, she said quietly. She wants small inputs. Anything more and she bite. Asterisk, the runway lights flickered faintly on the horizon, barely visible through the rain. The sight tightened something in her chest, not relief, but focus. Now came the hardest part. Runway in sight, the captain confirmed, leaning forward. Barely, she replied. We'll take it. The descent began. As they dropped lower, the turbulence intensified, slamming into the aircraft with violent, unpredictable force. The plane yawed sharply to the left, then the right. Her jaw clenched as she countered, muscles in her arms and legs burning with effort. Asterisk. Come on. Stay with me. Asterisk wind shear hit hard, robbing them of lift in an instant. The aircraft sank faster than expected. Her pulse spiked, but her voice remained calm. Asterisk. Adding power slow, she said. Yeezy. Asterisk. The engines responded unevenly, but enough. Asterisk. The runway rushed toward them now, lights blurring in the rain. The plane slammed sideways again, forcing her to fight for alignment. The captain gripped his seat, knuckles white, but said nothing. He trusted her. Asterisk. Almost there, she whispered. More to the aircraft than to anyone else. The landing gear struck the runway with a bone-jarring impact. The plane bounced, once, twice. A collective scream rose from the cabin. She corrected. Instantly, easing the nose down, fighting the urge to force it. Tires screamed as they made solid contact. Sparks flashed beneath the wings, visible even through the storm-darkened cockpit. Asterisk. Hold. Hold, she muttered. Asterisk. The aircraft skidded. Slightly, then straightened. Speed bled away, second by agonizing second. Her hands trembled now, fatigue and adrenaline crashing together, but she didn't loosen her grip until the plane slowed enough to be certain. Asterisk. Finally. The aircraft rolled to a stop. Asterisk. For one suspended. Heartbeat. There was nothing. Asterisk. Then the cabin exploded with sound cheers, sobs, hysterical laughter. The noise washed over her, distant and unreal. She leaned back in the seat, chest heaving as the tension drained from her body all at once. Asterisk. Her hand shook openly now. Asterisk. The co-pilot let out a broken laugh, dragging a hand down his face. Where down? Asterisk. The captain turned to her slowly, eyes shining. You did it. Asterisk. She shook her head faintly. The plane did. I just listened. Asterisk. Outside, emergency lights flashed red and blue through the rain, painting the cockpit in frantic color. Sirens wailed in the distance. Asterisk. She closed her eyes for just a second, letting the exhaustion hit her fully. Asterisk. Between sky and ground, between who she had been and who she was trying to become. She had found herself again. Asterisk. And she wasn't sure how she felt about that. The aircraft sat motionless on the rain-slick runway, engines finally silent, the sudden quiet almost painful after the chaos. Emergency lights strobed through the windows, washing the cabin and cockpit in alternating red and blue. The storm still raged above, but down here on solid ground, the danger had passed. For everyone else. She stayed seated for a moment longer, hands resting loosely on her thighs, trembling now that there was nothing left to hold together. Adrenaline drained from her system in a heavy wave, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Her shoulders ached. Her jaw throbbed from how tightly she'd clenched it. This was the part she remembered least fondly, the aftermath, when the mission was over and the weight of what could have happened finally caught up. Asterisk. The captain removed his headset and turned toward her. Up close, she could see the lines of strain etched deep around his eyes. I don't think "thank you" covers it, he said quietly. Asterisk. She managed a small smile. It usually doesn't. Asterisk. The co-pilot shook his head in disbelief, a breathless laugh escaping him. You saved everyone on this plane. Asterisk, she looked past him, out through the rain-streaked windshield where fire trucks and ambulances surrounded them like guardians. No, she said softly. We landed. That's all. Asterisk, the cockpit door opened, and a flight attendant peered in, eyes wide and glassy with emotion. Passengers are asking about you, she said. They want to know who... Asterisk, she gently shook her head. Please, just let them get off safely. Asterisk, the captain studied her for a moment, then nodded. He understood. Some people didn't want the spotlight. Some people had already lived in it long enough. Asterisk, as the evacuation procedures began, she unbuckled and stood, legs slightly unsteady. The familiar weight of responsibility lifted from her shoulders with each step back into the cabin. Passengers filled the aisle now, gathering bags, holding children, wiping tears from their faces. Conversations buzzed with nervous laughter and disbelief. Asterisk, when they saw her, many fell silent. Asterisk, a woman clasped her hands together, eyes shining. You're the one, she whispered. Asterisk, another passenger reached out, gripping her arm briefly. Thank you, he said, voice breaking. Asterisk, she nodded politely, murmuring soft acknowledgments, uncomfortable with the attention. Gratitude was heavy in its own way. She hadn't done this to be thanked. She'd done it because there had been no other choice. Asterisk, as she made her way toward the exit, the faces blurred together relief, awe, disbelief. To them, she was something extraordinary. Asterisk, to herself, she was just someone who had remembered who she used to be. Asterisk, at the aircraft door, rain-soaked air rushed in, cool and sharp. Emergency responders stood ready, guiding passengers down the stairs. She paused, taking one last look back at the cabin. Row 8 was visible from here, her seat, her backpack, still tucked neatly beneath the seat in front. Waiting like nothing extraordinary had happened. She almost laughed. Once on the tarmac, the captain approached her again, extending his hand. This time, she took it. His grip was firm, respectful. Asterisk. You ever think about coming back? He asked quietly. Flying, I mean. She hesitated. Every day, she thought. Every night. Every time she heard an aircraft pass overhead and felt something twist painfully in her chest. But she had chosen another life for a reason. A quieter one. A safer one. Asterisk, I think about it, she admitted. But thinking isn't the same as going back. Asterisk, he nodded, understanding more than she'd expected. Whatever you choose, you've got a place if you want it. Asterisk, she smiled, genuinely this time. Thank you. Asterisk, emergency crews led passengers toward the terminal, where blankets and warm lights waited. She followed more slowly, lingering at the edge of the runway, rain misting her face. The storm clouds were beginning to break apart, revealing thin streaks of dawn beyond them. Asterisk, she pulled her phone from her pocket. Messages flooded the screen, missed notifications, group chats, reminders about assignments due next week. Her other life calling her back. Asterisk, she slipped her headphones on as she walked, the familiar weight comforting. Music filled her ears, grounding her once more. In the glass of the terminal doors, she caught her reflection. Damp hair, tired eyes, civilian clothes. No uniform. No rank. No call sign, just a student. But now she knew the truth. She had tried so hard to forget. Asterisk, you could walk away from the cockpit. Asterisk, you could trade flight suits for textbooks and missions for midterms. Asterisk, you could sit quietly in row 8 and pretend the sky no longer mattered. Asterisk, but when the moment came, asterisk, when lives depended on steady hands and calm decisions, asterisk, the pilot was still there. Asterisk, she adjusted her backpack on her shoulder and stepped inside the terminal. disappearing into the crowd, still a student, still a pilot, asterisk, and finally at peace with both.